This is the Elite Entrepreneurs Podcast, where we teach you the proven methods to grow your seven-figure business to 10 million and beyond. Please welcome your host, Brett Gilliland.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Elite Entrepreneurs Podcast. This week, we have a guest with us who has built a business from seven figures on up into the 10 million plus, 8 figures range now. His name is Jeff Homer. Jeff is the founder of Ensemble Music, and they have several locations throughout the United States. Ensemble Music Schools, I need to be more specific, which he started up in 2019. Here, a couple years later, you've got how many locations? 20 something, Jeff?
Yeah, 22. Yeah,
22. So that's quite a fast path. It'll be part of the fun conversation that we have today. But thank you, Jeff, for spending time with us today. We're glad you're here.
Yeah, likewise. Appreciate the time, and I've listened to many episodes of the podcast. I'm a big fan, so I appreciate what you're doing for the community.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. We don't often get people in the podcast who have the kind of background that you have. So you come out of private equity. You know what it's like in that world to find great investments and push money around and bet on companies and all that. And then you decided that you're going to leave that world and build your own business through acquisition largely. So let's talk about that, because I think that's a fascinating way to build a business as quickly as you have.
Sure. No, I think it is a little bit interesting, and I definitely raised some eyebrows when I told people I was quitting my day job. But I think it's a path I came to organically and almost accidentally. I'd love to tell you that I sat down at the very beginning and sort of charted this course to where I am today. That would definitely not be true. That would be significantly revising the history of it. In actual fact, the quick version of my background is I was a Harvard undergrad out of school. I spent a couple of years working for Bain Capital. I moved to New York City. I was working for a mid-sized private equity firm called Reservoir Capital. And in 2018, I moved from New York to Denver, which was a significant upgrade in terms of my quality of life. And I went to work for a family office, basically investing capital on behalf of 3 very wealthy Denver families. But I found that not living in New York and not working the Wall Street hours, I had a lot more time on my hands, and I guess I don't have enough hobbies because I felt like I needed a side hustle of some kind. So I started looking around for small businesses that I could get involved with that would allow me to have a fun and rewarding financial project, but also something that had a level of tangibility that existed in the real world in a way that investing hundreds of millions of dollars does not. That sort of abstracts reality in a sort of strange and sometimes uncomfortable way. So I wanted to get involved in a local business. I took a bunch of meetings with sellers across a number of different industries, and I came across a music school that was for sale. And I walked in and I sort of was instantly transported back to my childhood, taking piano lessons and thinking to myself, I had the same piano teacher for 10 years when I was a kid, and I don't think that's an unusual experience. So here's a place where students are coming, they're having a fun time, they're staying for a while. So you have a recurring revenue, high customer lifetime value business that is run by, really well-meaning technicians, right? So music school owners are generally musicians, which puts them in the same category as veterinarians and dentists and other people that are seeing this transformation happen to their industry, where we're actually trying to separate the job of providing the service from the job of running the business. And so that was the insight I had with music schools. And so we went in there and we took what was a really excellent service delivery business. Like, the kids were having a great time and having a great experience, but the business was not especially well run in the way that you and I would think. It was really under marketed. They were doing pen and paper scheduling and timesheets. There was a lot of sort of obvious opportunity for somebody like, that would be listening to this podcast. So I got in there, and from there, it was just a process of doing what I had fun, doing. And so, to me, from schools 1 through schools, from the first location we bought through the 4th location we bought, I still kept my day job, and I was sort of spending more and more time on this side project and sleeping less and having to, explain my absences more. And it was just really clear to me what I wanted to be spending my time doing. And so with location number 5 under our belt, I was able to make the jump. I quit my day job, and I've been doing this full time ever since. It's been really fun.
Well, that's a great story. So you spent some time in big PE firms in New York City. You found a little work-life balance in Colorado, which is awesome. I lived in Colorado for a time, so I can get that. Where are you from originally? Before you ended up in New York, where were you from?
I grew up in Calgary, Canada, which I like to refer to as mini Denver. It's like the same place. It's just about a third the size.
Yeah. All right. Mini Denver. So you feel at home. So why music? Why? I mean, and you explained, yeah, these kids are having a great customer experience. As far as how the business is run, there's lots of improvement that we can make with systems and automation and all that stuff. But is there anything more that drew you? I mean, you said you did piano lessons for 10 years. I mean, why music school?
Yeah, I mean, definitely there was a personal connection to it. I mean, I felt right away that there was a warmth, to this environment where I just was excited to spend time in it. And I felt like, music education is something that is a societal good. It felt good to be working on and, promoting something that I really believed in. I mean, I am by no means a professional caliber player. And I feel that acutely every day now that I spend a lot of time around very talented people. But I can play okay. And that's brought me a lot of joy in my life, even as an amateur hobbyist. And so I really believe in the product. And I think that that's a useful, thing to be spending time trying to promote. And so, there were definitely some qualitative aspects of it that really appealed to me, but, more to the point, I felt like this was kind of underappreciated. I think that because it was music, people didn't look at it seriously as a business opportunity. There was an assumption that in the arts, you can't make money. And, that was driving me to saying, well, I think this is actually a pretty sticky revenue base and a pretty high value customer and a pretty, mom and pop competitive set that we can do well against. And that drove me to feel like there was real opportunity in the space.
Yeah, I think it's really neat. So it's only been a couple years and you're up to the 22 locations. Most of our listeners will not have built their business through acquisition. Well, let's talk a little bit about pros and cons of that. Like what, obviously fast growth is some potential upside, but what have been some of the challenges and why might somebody consider growth through acquisition?
Sure. So, I mean, the obvious answer is that it is the ultimate accelerator, right? I think going from 0 to 1 in business is so difficult, and we generally are benefiting from, years and in many cases, decades of investment by the original owner in building a great relationship with their community, which we then, benefit from and can sort of strap a jetpack onto from a marketing perspective. So for us, it makes a lot of sense. I think our biggest advantage, has been access to capital, right? I mean, I have a very privileged background. I was able to, call up people I'd worked with. They were willing to write, large checks personally into our growing business, and was able to pitch, the banking market on our business model being sort of a viable approach. I think, right now there's a lot of money out there looking for interesting things to do. And I think that that's more possible today than it ever has been as private equity has come down market, as bank lending standards have, to the benefit of your audience, declined. There's a much more robust network of individuals that are out there doing angel and angel-like investing in small businesses, whether they have venture moonshot potential or just robust growth opportunity. And so there's definitely capital out there, and scaling by acquisition is a way to leverage your time in an unbelievable fashion, and sort of say that for us, the insight that we have is about how to professionalize the back end of a music business and market it effectively to grow the community. What we have a hard time doing is putting together that really tenured, excellent faculty that takes care of those students, and all the effort in community building. That takes a long time. And so for us, we're able to come in, essentially benefit from and leverage that incredible work that's been done by the sellers over many years. And in some ways, we're almost fulfilling their vision for their school, right? We're taking it to where they thought that it could go, but maybe couldn't get it there themselves. And so we're making sure that all of those really talented faculty have full schedules and are making as much, as they'd like to be making, from their teaching time, and making sure that the students are part of a vibrant community where there's other students that are participating in performance opportunities and competitive opportunities. And so I think we're taking it from, we're clearly not going from 0 to 1, which is really hard to do, but we're taking it from 1 to hopefully a really high multiple of N that fulfills the original vision for the business when the seller started it many years ago.
Yeah, it's really cool. So out of the 22, or what percentage would you say the founder, that really good technician, that really good musician, that passionate teacher of kids, like how many of them are staying versus looking for a way to get out?
Sure. Rough numbers, I'd say about a quarter are staying. Oftentimes, by the time someone's contacted us, they have taken a step back from teaching entirely. So they're often chief administrator by the time they're looking to exit their business. And in some cases, they're actually looking to sell the school so they can go back to being a teacher, right? They got into the business as a teacher. They got away from it because scaling their small business was so overwhelming and so all-consuming that they had to give up being the teacher. And then that actually was a lot of what brought them joy. And they want to get back to that, as sort of a twilight, sort of easing into retirement, or even full-on retirement plan. I mean, it's definitely very doable to teach a few days a week for fun, as a semi-retired person. So, but about a quarter are staying involved, usually as teachers, sometimes as general managers. But it's been really fun. And I think, for us, we're always trying to create those win-win situations. So we're not we're never a hostile acquirer. We don't do, that's not possible in the small business world. And so we're always trying to create win-win partnerships and figure out what the seller wants to be doing, next in their career, and helping them get onto that, whether it's focusing on young family, whether it's going back to teaching, whether it's, starting an unrelated business. We've had one guy that wanted to go be a missionary in Kenya. So we've kind of seen the whole gamut at this point.
Yeah, it's really cool. So what is the end game for you? Are you hoping to, as long as there's private equity money out there, or investable money, are you planning to buy up more of these stores, or are you, I call them stores, locations, or you have a specific geography that you want to cover? Like what are your thoughts about the future?
Sure. So I think that our business has a lot of similarity to the academic tutoring business. So if you think about the type of person that shows up at a Sylvan or a Mathnasium or a Kumon Learning Center, that's a very similar parent to someone that's bringing their kids to music lessons. They're academically inclined. They have disposable income that they're willing to spend on their kid, and they're making sure that that kid is successful and high achieving, and making progress either just in their personal growth or in their kind of academic resume towards competitive prep school and college opportunities and things like that. Now, those franchises I just mentioned, the Kumons and Mathnasiums of the world, they have about 1,000 to 1,500 US locations each. So at 22 schools, I think we're a long way from maximizing the potential of what we can do in the music education space. There are, decent sized franchises in our space. School of Rock, which everyone probably lives pretty close to, has about 220 US locations, and there are a few other smaller ones. But I think it's possible to build a business in our space that, has a couple of hundred units, and that's going to take a long time. And I'm committed to working towards that. I think the fun thing about this journey and why I'm motivated to continue it has been that to this point, the promise, in my opinion, has been fulfilled, that the schools have benefited from being part of this larger network. So each school that comes onto our platform gets the benefit of centralized resources that they never had, as an independent school. And so what I like to refer to them as the 10 p.m. tasks. The things that the prior owner was doing at 10 o'clock at night, right, after the students had gone home for the day.
The accounting and the payroll and some semblance of marketing, and I get it. 10 p.m.
Yeah, all of those things, are now being done by people who love those things and are really good at them. And I think professionalizing that part of the business that doesn't touch students and doesn't touch parents and doesn't touch teachers, meaning that it doesn't affect their experience, that we can still stay true to that really local neighborhood feel that they had previously and loved. while still being able to scale and professionalize the back end. That's worked. And, I really don't see a reason why that won't continue to work for us as we are able to sort of split the hyper personal delivery of the service, which is that one-to-one relationship with a music teacher, and the hyper scale backend that we're working to build, as we've gone from 1 location to 22 locations in a relatively short period of time, that's working. And I think there's no reason to stop that momentum and try to exit or pivot or do something different. I'm having a lot of fun doing it, and I think there's a lot of runway remaining.
Yeah, it seems like it to me. So I think anybody who hears that story can pick out lessons along the way that you've already shared without even labeling them lessons. But let's officially get into some labeled lessons. As you've grown and you've grown quickly, tell us about some of the lessons around building that team. I mean, not the local site, but like there's the back end work that you talked about, and you've had to build a team. I imagine you're putting together a leadership team if you haven't done that yet. It's coming fast. Like, let's talk about some of the lessons you're learning as you're growing in your leadership and as you're having to develop the organization of Ensemble Music School. What's that been like for you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And hopefully I can provide, some useful answers. I came to your podcast looking for others' answers to that. So hopefully I can add a few to the list. Look, I think we've gone through the transition that you're describing, in your audience in terms of building a business from $1 million to 10 million plus of revenue, right? And a $1 million business is a small business, and a $10 million business is on the cusp of being a medium-sized business, right? Those are very different things. And it has been an incredibly painful thing to go quickly from being a small business to being a middle market sized company. And I think the most important thing that I've had to do over that period of time has been to get myself out of the way, and to stop trying to be an individual contributor, because that's definitely my nature, right? I want to be in there doing things, helping things, and not even just, I can do this, so I will do this. And when you put yourself in that position, and then the phone rings and you get distracted by something else, or an emergency happens, or something else comes up and bumps that down the list of priorities, it doesn't happen for the entire business, right? And so decreasing the number of items on which I am the primary individual contributor and ultimately trying to manage that down to 0 has been, one of the biggest projects I've been working on over the last 2 years. I would say today, I'm still really driving the acquisition process for our business, in terms of, new schools and relaying our message to prospective sellers and helping to guide them through that process is still something I'm deeply involved with. And I'm trying to, reduce that part, the reliance on me and that part of the organization. But I think elsewhere, we've made a lot of progress in terms of, building up a really good team and empowering them to get stuff done if I'm away from my desk dealing with something else. So I think that's been by far the most important thing that I've had to work through. I think something that is unique to our, or maybe not unique, but emphasized in our acquisition growth strategy has been trying to battle complexity, right? So we've acquired 22 locations. I guarantee you they had 22 different ways of doing pretty much everything that they did.
Right.
And standardization and battling complexity has been critical to having our business be manageable, like literally able to be managed, as opposed to just sort of an aggregation of little fiefdoms that don't talk to each other and are not, part of a larger whole. And standardization can be painful. It often means, implementing changes that people, don't see the value in or don't like better than the one that they had before. And so we've tried to be really sensitive to, what are the best, what's the best of each that's available at the subsidiary level. And so we've definitely learned a lot from putting those things together, taking, the best of A and the best of B and the best of C and rolling them out everywhere. It sort of raises the average and raises the bar for our business, over time. But battling complexity and trying to enforce standardization and, having standard operating procedures making sure they're communicated and disseminated clearly, and making sure people actually follow them, has been a big point of emphasis as we've grown, probably from 5 schools to 20 schools for sure.
Yeah, it seems like that central leadership team would be important, but it also seems like that general manager role, I think I heard you use that term, for the local leader would be a key role for you. What have you learned about how to get the right person in there who's willing to make some of these changes, especially as we find a new thing with the next acquisition that's even better, and we want to go back and roll it to everybody else? And like, that general manager role is probably key. What have you learned about what that role looks like, and how to hire the right person, and how to work with them? And I'm just fascinated by that.
Yeah, that's a super interesting question, and one that we're still working on ourselves. I would say we've probably hired, of our 18 general managers today, we've probably hired about a third of them, and 2/3 of them came with the businesses we bought. They're folks that have seen a really big change in, a community that they really care about. So I think first and foremost, we benefit from the fact that this is an arts focused organization, right? So we get people that really deeply care about what we're doing and the service we're providing. And we probably get a better than average candidate as a result of that. I think what we're trying to do with that individual is basically turn them into a franchisee of sorts, right? So we want to give them enough operating support to where they can run it like it's a Subway, and make sure that the sandwich gets made the way that you expect, and that really what we're asking them to do is deliver a great client experience and a great experience for our teachers. And if they can do that, if they can do those two things, which are complicated and sensitive and require empathy, like they're hard things, but that's clear. That's what you're focusing on as a general manager, are the people that walk through the door. If you can do that, we'll take care of the rest. And it's been a really, it's been a productive division of labor, and one that I think they've all really stepped up and grown into, and it's been really rewarding to see.
Yeah, it's super fascinating as you think about acquiring the technical skill of music, and then trying to apply a standardized way across an increasing number of locations. I can just imagine some of the challenges, but what a really cool strength to start out with, right? You have people who know how to deliver the end result. That's key. But I love your focus on, if we build the team right, like as long as that general manager can hire the right team to deliver and maintain a level of standard excellence around the experience for students, that's a long-term customer, as you've sort of pointed out. Even on the short end, what kid quits piano lessons in less than 6 or 8 months? Like you get some value out of everybody that comes through. And in your case, and in many, it's a years long journey. So cool. All right. I could probably geek out on this conversation for a long time. I've kept you've got 22 stores, and counting. I keep calling them stores. You know what I mean? Schools. You got all these locations.
Some of them are stores. We have a good mix of music retail in addition to music lessons. But
a lot of those places, they do the product and the service, right? They have both. Well, that's cool. All right, schools and stores. Well, you have a lot to do. If people listening want to connect with you, Jeff, or they want to learn about if there's an Ensemble Music School near them, how would they look that up?
Well, hopefully, if they're looking for a music lesson, we've already been in front of them with a targeted ad.
There you go.
So hopefully that's the case. If they want to get in touch with me, I'm active in a couple of places. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Jeff Homer, Ensemble Music Schools, should be pretty easy to find. I'm also part of a couple of entrepreneurship through acquisition platforms. One in particular is called Search Funder. So if people want to join that community, especially if they're interested in entrepreneurship through acquisition, I recommend it. I'm not affiliated with that community. I'm just a member of it. I think it's great, and I get a lot of value from it. And if you want to learn more about our business, we're Ensemble Music Schools, ensembleschools.com. Look forward to serving you if you need piano lessons.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, it's been a pleasure. Really unique how you've grown this so far. 10 million plus in 2 years. Part of that time you were still employed. Like it's high growth, and that's what growth through acquisition can do for you. But wow, a lot of the challenges you're dealing with typically happen a little slower over a longer period of time. Maybe I said the same thing twice there, but you get the gist of it. It just more gradual, and it's fun to see that type of change and all the interesting leadership challenges along the way. So thank you for sharing your story with us and for being our guest today, Jeff.
Yeah, appreciate the time.
All right. Everybody else, please rate, review, like, share, do all those things to make sure that as many seven-figure business owners as possible get to hear what Jeff shared with us today. We'll continue to bring guests like Jeff each week, or I'll share something that I think is important for you as well. But we look forward to having you with us next week on another episode.
You've been listening to the Elite Entrepreneurs Podcast with your host, Brett Gilliland. Be sure to leave a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. You may also want to visit our website, eliteentrepreneurspodcast.com, to find additional resources to grow your business from 7 figures to 10 million and beyond.